everyone. Welcome back to the CCO Follow podcast. This is our third episode talking about dating and engagement. Yeah. And today, Travis and I have Kari Krausmann on. And she has a unique perspective on dating and engagement. It's something that I think many of us go through, but not a lot of us know or understand what it is like. So Kari, I'm just interested just to kind of really just start the podcast off here. What's your story on this, and what's that unique perspective?
Yeah, I would say that my perspective probably spans more of the experience of my own, and also kind of observing couples and dating when they have children versus when they don't. That's a totally different experience. So, my experiences dating before I got married. My experiences before I had my daughter, when I was in my early 20s versus when I dated later, and what that was like. Totally different experience. And what people go through and kind of what they're looking for really changes once they've had children. I find that's a totally different filter and lens.
Yeah.
Which actually would really be an ideal filter and lens, thinking about those things before they have children.
Yeah.
Because you are, you're more careful. You're looking for qualities in that other person that really you want to have even before you have kids.
Yeah.
And so
you just have the reminder right in front of your face the whole time
Yes.
of this kid you go home to, and you're like, oh yeah.
Yes.
Instead of having to think about a future potential kid.
Right. Is this someone that's going to be a good influence?
Yeah.
Are they someone that's walking with the Lord, truly walking
with
the Lord, and not, it's, I hope someday that they are like da-da-da.
Yeah.
Versus.
And to those listening, just to give an encouragement to why you should be really paying attention to this conversation, because you might be like, well, maybe I'm already married, or maybe I'm dating, but I don't have kids, and this is gonna be my lifelong partner. I mean, you don't know that. They could pass prematurely and you end up having kids, and you end up dating again with kids. But also, I mean, when you think about just the statistics of how many children live in split homes.
Yeah.
I grew up in a split home, and my mom remarried when I was going into 4th grade. And if you think of how many kids live in that situation, that means those parents dated with kids. And so there's so many people out there, even if this never applies to you, it'll apply to many people you probably know, one reason or another, and you can encourage them to do it in a very biblical and godly way.
Yeah.
That's so good.
I remember when my husband and I were newly married, and we would look around and compare ourselves to couples that were more of a nuclear traditional unit with mom and dad.
Yeah.
Well, a family with a combined household is not going to be in that same, you're in a totally different family unit than someone else.
Yeah.
And for about 5 years, I worked, I volunteered at church here with a program called Single and Parenting. And that would have been, I highly recommend that for people that are dating. And also if they've gone through a divorce, there's a divorce care. You can do those groups online, you can go, but it's really important that you process that correctly in a godly way. So that way you are healthy, and you're looking for qualities that the Lord would have you be looking, and not healing some of the things from your past. You don't want to be placing that on another person. Nobody wants expectations placed on them. One of the pearls of wisdom single parenting talks about is don't go looking for a replacement parent for your child.
Yeah.
The best thing you can hope for is a coach. Looking on them as a coach in their life, another adult that can put input in them. If it becomes more than that, that's awesome.
Right.
But you don't want that child
You don't
already
want to
has
presume
a
that's going to
parent.
have that way.
Yeah. And those kids do have a parent. They have, if you're a single mom, they have a dad.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're present in their life. But you are looking at that person as a coach, a good influence, someone that can pour into your child's life. So I think using those filters when you're dating and having them, and if, again, like I said, if you have past hurts that need to be healed, it's really important to address those. So you're not bringing that pressure onto another person.
Is this stuff that you learned by experience, or was this kind of something you went through and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this a different way now. What was it like for you when you found yourself as a single parent, but you're like,
Yeah.
do I meet people? What was that
Yeah, when
process
did you even decide
like?
that it was
Yeah.
okay to start dating again?
Yeah, I would say my daughter was about 3, and I have to say a lot of my experience came from my own. It was scary. I was young. I was in my 20s. Everyone around me was either married with kids or without, or single, and so there were very few single parents at that time in my to kind of draw from. So I would say, again, based on the past that I look back now, and there could have been some, just perception of what I was looking for differently. I would think I was looking for stability. That should have come from the Lord.
Yeah.
Sure.
In another person. And so I would say a combination of my own. And through the years, I've met for me, it's more connecting with other women that are single moms, kind of doing the same thing, looking for that they have someone else to, go through life with their child, for financial stability, for emotional. And so some of those things that we really need to be looking to the Lord for to complete us. In my experience, I went through dating just different thoughts. And in one way, it kind of made things efficient. If I didn't feel like that person was a godly influence, if I felt like there were parts of their character that weren't going to be a good influence on my daughter or myself, then I ended it. And and that was kind of like a shorter process because I just was really careful about who we were around.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also saw that in other women too that I've dated, that I find it's so much better to keep the child out of the scenario because sometimes they've gone through loss, kids. So I think when parents are dating, it is really important to keep the child not in that equation until it's at a place that they're getting more serious and they really are considering them as a life partner.
That's a good point. It's kind of a question that I was going to ask of just like, with kids, like it's different when you're single, like you might introduce, the person you're dating to like a friend or like
family
and
or
then
whatever.
it's like, oh, I'm going to introduce you to my parents. Like that's another stage.
Yes.
But I feel like there's
But
like
it's still
what you're
not
saying,
like near engagement stage. It's still very far down.
And so what you're saying is like, because with kids, it is like they can get attached.
Yes.
Yeah.
So where, like, how did you navigate that, and like what was your process in that?
Yeah. I would say mine's learning from experience. So I wasn't as good about that myself. I have someone, a family member right now she's careful to date and not have her child be exposed.
Yeah.
He's a little guy that would be totally attached to, so she keeps him, he doesn't, that's her separate life. So when she's available, she dates him. It slows the process down because obviously that's another layer for later. However, don't you want the process to be slowed down when that's a life partner?
Yeah.
And to make sure that's really who God has intended you to be with. So on the one hand, it's a longer process. You're finding out, is this person have qualities that I want to be with?
Yeah.
So for me, I think that, yes, I was processing that. And then, it's really easy to, in the fun stage, and you're getting to know one another, you're so excited. You so much want them to be a part of your whole world.
Yeah. Totally.
You just have to remove yourself from that and think about your child.
Yeah.
They are going to be attached to this person.
Yep.
Do I want that to happen? That's going to be another loss.
Yeah.
And so really not, I think, just from my own experience and what I've observed others around me dating also, because I saw some of those kids go through loss.
Yeah.
So I do think until you are really serious, and this is someone who's got all the qualities, you've prayed about it, the new and shiny has worn off.
Yeah.
You are ready now to begin integrating and to make sure, is this someone that's going to really enjoy my child the way I love them? You already know, if you have gone through that filter, I think you have a really good sense if this person is kind towards others, they're serious about the Lord, you really like how they interact with others. You have given that enough time to make sure you can't rush it.
Yeah.
And I think the errors that I've seen are when women and men have rushed the process. No matter how they met that person, don't rush the process. And when there's a child or children involved, take more time to make sure that child is entitled to live in a home where they're loved and cared for, and they're going to be influenced by someone who loves the Lord. And then I think that can eliminate a lot of pain.
Yeah. I'm thinking of particularly, it's ironic that I have two perfect examples of like going through the exact same thing from back in Florida. We had these two different sets of friends. Both of them, the girl had a kid, and they're dating a guy who didn't have a kid. And in both cases, they had the guy get very involved with their family very soon. And in one case, the kid was, I want to say 3, and was calling him dad right away.
Whoa.
And that was just really hard. They ended up not working out, and it was really hard. In the other case, didn't call him dad for a while, but did call him dad before they were engaged. And thankfully it did work out, and they're doing great right now, and it's wonderful. But what I'm thinking about is, thinking about how both of these worked out. Neither of the girls had a family nearby. How do you suggest if someone is dating and they have a kid? I mean, especially I'm thinking about like the 4th grader, because that was one of the kids was like he might have been in 3rd grade, but like older, like aware of what's going on. How do you go? How do you go about dating and really getting to know this person without your kid finding out? In a way where like, you don't want to be dancing and hiding from them. But you also don't want them to start getting attached to this person prematurely. Like how did you handle that?
My daughter actually went to her dad's every other weekend. So
so that helped a lot. Both of these moms, they were with them all the time.
I also had parents locally that could watch her, so I did, and I actually worked 8 to 5 where I could meet for lunch or whatever. So I actually had more flexibility than what's other cases.
No, that's fair.
I think if you're a single parent, and again, it's not that they can never meet, it's just you're really being mindful that that's your friend. And so
it takes intentionality.
Just always keeping in mind your child's best interests. So
Travis, I'm curious for you, because you grew up in a similar situation. So what was it like? Did you notice it? Like, what was that experience for you as the child?
I remember the first time that my now dad picked my mom up for a date. We were dropped off at my aunt and uncle's house, and it was the first time. Well, I shouldn't say that. No, I wasn't the first time they went on a date. It was the first time we met him before them going on a date, and I was much more standoffish than my sister, ironically, because of life, but I remember she started calling him dad. I think it was right after they got engaged is when she started calling him dad. And my mom was very much like, Cheryl's calling, him, James dad now. Like, are you going to? And like, I was like, no, like it took a little bit longer. But I mean, it was definitely a progression. It was definitely like, this is mom's friend, and they're dating, and he'd come over and watch, we watch a movie, he'd sleep on the couch sometimes, and it was like that was kind of just getting used to this person around. And we had although my biological dad was in and out of our lives. He had been out of our lives for a couple years at that point, but we very clear remembers who he was, still had, things that were from him and stuff like that. And so there was a certain amount of, I don't want to say weirdness, but just kind of like adjustment of like, trying to, get used to what does this mean for, lives moving forward. I think it helped when they did get married that we not immediately, like very soon after, moved from Shelton to Olympia, and so it kind of like, okay, this is new. This is a completely new situation.
Kari,
interesting.
I'm going to ask you this question, and it's going to be kind of a weird question, but I'm just trying to put myself in that season, those shoes, I guess you could say. So, when I was dating my now wife, there's this like, for me, it was like a lot of my attention was on that, and obviously maybe too much on it. But I'm curious, going from like having the experience of dating without kids to then dating with kids. In my mind, there's got to be this tension of like, well, your kids are your sole focus.
Yeah.
But when you're dating without kids, it becomes like, well, I have so much more attention to give to this person. What was it like to go from that to having kids, but also trying to give attention? Like, was it the same? Like, I'm just curious what that felt like, I guess you could say.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I don't know if I've ever really thought about it like that. I do think when your kids are younger, as parents in general, they require a lot more energy.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so your capacity to pour into another relationship is a little more limited.
Yeah.
As your kids get older, you have a little more mind space.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to that day.
Yeah.
So much. Alicia literally brought it up this morning.
So, excuse me, I would say when I dated, my daughter was 3, and when I met my husband, she was 9. So when I dated in between there, it was like I would date someone, and maybe after like 3 months, I was like, you know what? I totally don't have the capacity. This isn't the one. There are qualities, and your time is just so precious as a parent, whether you're dating or not.
Yeah.
You just get right to the bottom of things. So at that, I was like, nope. I totally, so I would say, but when I was dating my husband, I think there was a balance. It was exciting and new, but I think as a parent, your kids are always so important. It was just natural to put them above, their needs above mine. So I think it probably actually brought more balance. It's easy to get swept away with emotions when you don't have anything else going on.
Yeah.
And then, when you are a parent, you're like, oh, you're just balancing.
It's kind of like a grounded
working.
effect.
Yes, that's a really good way. And also spiritually, you're also like, is this person the best person? Is this?
Yeah.
Are they serious about their walk?
Yeah. Because it's not
gonna
just
hope for it.
representing you, it's also representing you and your child.
Yes.
Yeah.
I use the vision of, is this someone, I really use this, is this someone I can see my grandkids curling up on their lap and he's reading a Bible story? No, I can tell you for sure my husband, yes. But that was a measure I used when I was dating. Was, is this someone that's going to, and if not, well, then that gave me the answer there.
I'm curious, like, obviously we'll ask some questions specifically about when you were dating Jeff, since that worked out. But for everyone before that, you dated while still having a kid. How did all of them meet your daughter? And if not, or I guess if not, what was kind of the reason you were like hesitant, like you didn't have him meet her? And if so, about how long into dating, did they meet her? Was it like 3 months in, 6 months in? Like when did you decide to cross that bridge of like, you're going to meet my daughter?
Boy, let me think. I think I dated 2 or 3 people between the time she was 3 and 9. I feel like there's 3. And I would say those dating experiences, like I said, I was kind of efficient in a way of like, okay, the Lord has shown me, like I really wanted him to show me, is this somebody or not? And so I probably terminated after 3 months. Because I was like, okay.
So they never met.
They did. So that's where I feel like my experience comes from. Don't do what I did. But I've watched others. And so I've watched, why do people date? What are they looking for? And are those expectations they really should be looking at the Lord to meet, or that other person? If a mom's feeling vulnerable financially, well, what can she do to help herself financially? So she isn't looking at this other person. She wants to look at who the Lord's providing for her. But just, I know another woman who went through loss, a terrible loss. And so right away, at a rebound effect, met someone who was like a coach to her kids. So it's like, oh, okay, and then over time found, well, I needed someone for herself, not who's the best coach. And I probably introduced in the first 6 weeks. My daughter did have a really secure relationship with her dad. So she had the buffer of,
that helps.
she had a present parent. She wasn't looking at someone else to meet that. She had a dad, and she was not, and she went faithfully, and he financially supported her.
Yeah.
So she was blessed in that way. Not all kids are. And so I think taking that into effect is important. Like, this is my friend, but this is my friend, and being careful with that.
So you mentioned that you've helped a lot of other, or at least walked with a lot of other women who have done the same or gone through the same experience. Referencing back to Arthur calling kids sentient after a certain age.
My friend told me that the other day. He has a 2-year-old, and he's like, I can't wait till she's sentient.
How have you watched or like maybe even helped them with their kid at that sentient age? Like, they're cognizant of what's going on. A guy or a girl goes into their parents' life and then leaves, maybe after even being there for 6 months, a year even. What is that like? And I think the most difficult part is the fact that the parent is going through the loss of this person they were dating.
Yes.
Because, we see people go through that all the time, and it's heartbreaking, and it's hard for them. But now they're also trying to help their kid who has zero idea of really what's going on.
I know.
So how have you seen that handled as well as it can be?
Yeah. I think when that has happened, first of all, I think it's a growing experience for the parent to learn, like, okay, what could I do differently in the future? How could I protect my child in a way? They had hopes and dreams also that would work out. So what could they do in the future? Maybe delaying that. But also, like, just going back to the child, I really want to date and marry someone that the Lord has planned for me. And I thought this was who the Lord had. And I'm sorry that you're hurting with the loss. I miss them too. But I know the Lord's going to provide and take care of us. And, and I do think it's really important if a child doesn't have a lot of role models, whether it be men or women, if it's a single dad for women or vice versa, a mom. I absolutely, I just responded to someone the other day. Church is a really great place to have secure male role models.
Oh, totally.
We're really blessed at Calvary because we have men teaching from 4th grade on. So those kids are getting, we've got Pastor Tom and male and female role models in junior high, in high school. They're there for 3 years. So we have, I'd say, plugging them into healthy, steady role models that are going to support where you're at with your kids. So I think that's important. I think mistakes are just going to happen because we're human.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's important to glean from it.
Well, and you can make mistakes, not even just mistakes. We just don't know the future, and we do what we believe is right. Sometimes they're not even right or wrong. It's just, but I think what was good is in your answer of like what you would tell a kid. One of the things you did not say is, and this is a good thing, is that, I think tends to be our tendency in some ways, is you didn't paint that person in a bad light. Because I think one of the things that can happen when a parent is dating and they have a kid is that, if they break up, it's like, well, this was just a bad person, or this was just, this is such a not good person for me, or this is not, and it's just like, okay, like, you put the focus on God and how God provides and how God is good and how not every single thing that comes your way may work out, and that's okay. Rather than painting dating as like this, got to cut out all the toxic men and it's just like, no, you put the focus on like, this was not the right person. And God is good.
Bringing it back into Christ.
And it's like, God may or may not provide the right person, but God is, your heavenly Father, or God is like, you know what I mean? Like, just bringing it back to like, so what's solidly true and good and uplifting for that kid, rather than like teaching the kid that, this is a person you have to hate now, or this type of person is someone you ought to not like. And it's like, it's just sad when you see parents doing that, or even people just dating in general doing that.
You do that with your friends all the time, right? Well,
exactly.
At least I do. I'm a bad example.
Do you know, that's where I really go back to single and parenting, that grief share, divorce care, single parenting, it's all from church initiative. You can do an online class for free for,
Yeah.
11 weeks or whatever. It really helps you learn.
Yeah.
And also being careful that you're not talking about their dad
Yeah.
or their mom
Yeah.
if you're not with them
Yeah.
in a light that's honoring to Christ.
Yeah.
They're half that other parent.
Yeah.
And so they take
Yeah, they
that
don't want to grow up
inward.
thinking
Yeah.
that, I'm
Yes.
half a terrible person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that,
Yes.
unfortunately, it happens a lot. You
They should
see it
realize
lot.
they're a full terrible person,
Yeah.
saved by Jesus. But
Oh my
that's
goodness,
another
Trevor.
conversation. And I
That's
think
a good one.
and I think the other good thing to remember is that yes, there's these online resources, and that's a wonderful thing. However, let's not also minimize or forget to emphasize the importance of like local community.
Yeah.
Yes.
That part of the blessing, I think those are wonderful resources, but I do think we tend to sometimes gravitate towards like, oh, these are the people in the exact same experience as me, and you're like, great, so you're going to be in an echo chamber. Like, is that really what you want?
Yeah.
Like, you want to be part of relationships that have lasted a long time. You want to be part of people who are single without kids. You want to be part of like, you want
Yes.
the gamut of the body of
Yeah.
Christ, and
Yeah.
people, because the other part that can happen with grief share, and not grief share specifically, but like this idea of going to a online group that you're only there for a condensed amount of time talking about specific things.
Yeah.
Is people tend to only share the things that make them look good, and people tend to only share the things that they want to share. Where when you're actually in physical community with people, they see your life.
Yes.
The people you meet online, I mean, this is up to you. You get as much as you put into it.
Yeah.
But you could easily not tell them that you've missed church the last few weeks. That you've not been, doing this or that with your faith and growing, or your parenting or different stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they just look at the things you share, and it's like, oh, it's terrible, it's happening to you. And they just become this, enabler. When
Yeah.
you're walking with real community people, they're like, hey, I didn't see a church. Hey, we're at home group. Hey, you missed Bible study. Hey, I noticed that it looks like when you're parenting, you just seem a little more like short with your kid, because they're actually there in the difficult moments.
Yes.
And I just want to emphasize, like,
Yeah.
it's easy to, and not just, it's a good thing to go to a group like that, especially an online group where it's like, here's people struggling with the same thing that I have, but it cannot replace the other aspect of community of people who are not going through the exact same thing, where they can speak into your life. There's a saying where it's like, yes, when you are, drowning in a pool, it could be tempting to want to find other people with the same experience, but don't you actually want someone on the outside of the pool who can pull you out rather than just drowning with you, and now you're just suffering together?
Yes.
Like, we need to make sure we, that people are realizing they should not, in any circumstance of life, just rally around people going through the same thing. But they need to be with the larger body of Christ to be lifted up.
Yeah, I totally. And you know what? To add to that, because there's in-person groups, but it's more of a lesson. It's really not a substitute for community.
Yeah.
So
No, it's a great,
really
it's a
good
great
point.
supplemental. It's a great addition to, absolutely.
Yeah, but not the community of accountability,
Yeah.
which is what you need. And
Yeah.
you need other people looking at your life.
Yeah.
And giving you feedback.
Yeah.
To make sure it's very easy when you're dating, I think, too, to convince yourself, oh, well, this is okay over here because of this. But you want the people that you trust, that you are walking through life with, to be part of that. I think whether you have kids or you don't, it's really important that the people you trust, you're looking at them and asking them, having them hold you accountable, having them be feedback that you really want. Like, am I doing this?
Well, me, you know my kid.
Seeing?
Is this person any good for them?
Are there any red flags that I'm not seeing that maybe you could give me? Could you give me feedback? So I think that's good.
Especially in the really delicate spot of being a parent with a kid trying to date. I feel like it'd be very easy to either be so, I don't want to say desperate, but you just want someone so badly that you ignore a lot of red flags, or you become so stringent and so like, this person has to basically be Jesus, to where you're just like saying no to every single person because they're like, wait a second, like just, and it's the outside perspective can help.
That kind of leads me to my next question is more of, okay, so your daughter's 9 now. And
not now, but
in
the story.
In the story that I'm building here. And, you meet your husband for the first time. Tell us about like how, because this was the one
how did that grow?
That worked. So what was that story like?
Well, if you ask my husband, he was like, I've never been around kids, because he was 40 by this time, 39.
Okay.
Turning 40. And he was excited, overwhelmed. And all my daughter wanted to do was pull out a book and have him read it. And she readily accepted him at the point, that he was in the picture. So I would say it was exciting to grow as a family of 3. We dated and married in the same year, and then we had a child the
How
next
did you
year.
know like that was?
Okay, it's kind of funny.
Okay.
We went to, this is kind of a funny story, but Westwood, Living Water, and Calvary all had Gail Irwin here do a singles seminar at the 3 churches.
Oh, wow.
The whole message of the seminar, it was all for single people, was get your eyes off yourself and serve others.
Right on.
So I was like, wait, I was thinking somehow we were going to meet other single people. No, but it was such a good message. And I had seen him at church. I know the Lord had that plan for us, because I was like, Lord, at that point in my life, I had chosen not to date anymore. I just wanted to wait on the Lord. And I just felt really secure, whether I always remained single or I didn't. I had been through enough of dating, excuse me, that I really wanted to just wait on the Lord.
Yeah.
Until his timing.
You were comfortable dating, but you were also like, I don't need this.
It was kind of like
I didn't.
It was kind of like you gave up something that you were kind of holding on to, and you gave it to the Lord.
I did. I was looking for someone rather than waiting on the Lord to see if he would bring me someone.
Yeah.
So once I became comfortable, I just decided, you know what? I'm going to grow in my walk with the Lord. I'm going to develop these interests in my life. I don't need someone.
Yeah.
But I
Don't
hope
need
the
no
Lord.
man. No, kidding.
But I don't need. I felt like the Lord had me at the place he was trying to get me at all along.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for someone for either one of us.
Yeah.
So I was there. I had seen him at church. And I just thought he was really cute. So actually, I remember sitting at it going, Lord, if this is the person you have for me, please have him come over and talk to me. But I won't do anything. I won't initiate. I'm just going to rest in you. And he just felt like he'd asked Gail Irwin something, and he went over to the book table as I'd prayed if that was the person for me. And he came over and we started talking. And then Gail Irwin was waiting forever for his ride. And he just asked, do you want to meet for hamburgers and talk? And so
Wow.
So he
from
was
there.
not letting the singles conference go to waste. He was
No,
like,
he was redeeming it.
That's awesome.
But I knew, because I had really prayed, let me just drop it after this.
Yeah.
But if this is your will, Lord, then I pray that you'd have us meet. It was the very last, that very end of it. Although if you ask him, he was torn between 2 people, and I was the one they talked to.
Wow.
Well, that's a good thing it
the
wasn't
story
the
could
other
have ended
person.
very differently.
Excuse me, it was kind of funny.
Well, the spirit guides,
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. And then, anyway, he was like, shoo, later. She wasn't even a believer. She was just someone I had invited. It was kind of funny. For us, it was
someone
funny.
you invited.
Yes.
So you were literally together.
Yes.
So his plan was
Yes.
literally to ask you, and if you said no, just talk to the person directly next
Again,
to you.
the Lord provides. So
That's such a dude thing to do. I hate that. I'm sorry.
yeah. So anyway, and it was really clear to him, a very short time after we started dating, really for both of us. We just knew it was. If you ask him too, it's the same thing. We just knew that was what the Lord had at that time in our lives. And so anyway, for us, just everything fell into place, and it's good. Happily ever after,
That's
24
awesome.
years in our sinful state. But we do feel like the Lord did bring us together on the basis, and we both had a church community. We went to Bible studies together. We were part of home group together. So we had a lot of eyes and ears that were part of our community to also give us feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what would your kind of advice be then, since you've kind of been through this? And I know you've been giving a lot of it, but what are maybe some key things that you want to like highlight extra, or that you have for somebody who is a single parent, you know, and is trying to navigate dating in this time?
Yeah. Well, I think making sure they're growing in their walk with the Lord and continuously holding it up to the Lord, not trying to make it be their will,
Yeah.
but the Lord's. And just, if this is not what you have for me, please show me or remove it. I think that's really important. I think not rushing. I just see so many people rushing, whether they're dating with kids or without. Just slow it down, and over time, all of our character becomes known, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the only way. And then you have the layer of a child. So I think not rushing is important. I think being part of a community, and really, I think looking at qualities you want in a mate and a husband or wife before you even begin dating. And then if those are really important, want versus need, right?
Right.
Need being most important. Do they love the Lord? Are they kind? What's their character? These things.
Yeah.
Do they sit and do video games all day? You know what I mean? Like, don't kid yourself that they're going to change later. Like, you need to keep that in mindset when you're dating. And then also, what are they, when that time comes and you are feeling like, yes, we're ready for the next step of them, getting to know one another. What are they like? Is this someone that is kind to your child? Are they are they encourager? Are they a good co-parent with you? And are they a good influence on your life and the child? So they're going to help both of you in your walk with the Lord. So I think the Lord does reveal over time those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I was just telling one of my daughters the other day, when you marry someone, you want to know, I would just hate to not have, you want the new and shiny to wear off. And this person, like, I want this person in my life more than, letting them go. Like, there's qualities. I want them, if anything, a good friend, because I love all these parts.
Yeah.
That's when you also, I think, between the Holy Spirit and that community, knowing that you are making the best choice for you and your child. And things are still, they can still happen, but you've done your part to make the best decision for you and your kids.
Yeah, that's so good.
Helpful.
Well, Kari, thank you so much for coming on and telling your story and your experience. You are awesome. And I'm sure a lot of people can know now that they can come up to you if they have that experience and talk with you about that. So,
thanks.
And thank you so much for watching and listening this episode. Just a reminder, there's questions now. We're going to be answering questions. So in 2 weeks, Travis and I will be answering questions that you send in. So if some question pops up in your head as you're watching or listening, doesn't matter if it's this episode or another episode, but if it's about this topic this month, send it in. Yeah, dating engagement. Send it in. calvaryoli.com/follow podcast is an area where you can go to submit questions, but you can leave comments too. YouTube, Spotify, all that stuff. So definitely participate in that because it's fun. Travis and I love answering the questions.
Oh, yes.
Thanks again for watching and listening, and as always, God bless.